Hey, 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 welcome, welcome. All right, so today we're going to be talking about how I sell books and strategies that I use to get it done. So, first of all, happy May. Welcome to another month. And there is a lot of exciting stuff happening in my world. Also, some challenges happening, which I'll get into later. But my youngest is turning 2 this month. And if y'all thought that I was doing a lot before, just wait because now that he's like sleeping through the night and taking a predictable nap time, I am okay checking to make sure that it's working over on Facebook. I'm going to be turning up the heat. So, all right, we are going to be talking about ways that you can sell books. And so, as you're coming in, let me know in the chat what book you are working on right now, whether it is a book that you already finished or a book that you are in the process of publishing, and then let us know what it's about because you never know who's watching, and they might actually be your ideal reader because we focus on pitching and asking our ideal reader to buy our book, not just trying to sell to everyone. All right, so let me know that in the chat. Okay, and I also want to, of course, I'm going to reference my new book. Y'all going to be tired of me hearing. You're going to be sick of me talking about this book. But it is my new book, baby, Profitable Publishing with Pre-orders, and I'm so excited about it. And it is something that has just been a labor of love, and it's going to be something that is really transformative for you. So if you haven't already gotten your copy, go ahead and grab it at profitableselfpublishing.com, and you will be able to have like I said, a transformative experience. So, all right, let's get into some strategies, and I'm also going to read some of it to you as well. Before we get into strategies, I do want to address the fact that I'm noticing this is a very big thing in the author space, is that a lot of authors deal with imposter syndrome, and this is something I mentioned in the book a couple of times, and it's something that I had to get over, and it's something you're going to have to continuously get over because it's just going to keep happening as you continue to elevate, as you continue to, sorry, I'm adding a link to the book in the chat. As you continue to elevate, as you continue to reach new levels, you are going to continuously have to prove to yourself and remember and remind yourself that you are capable of doing wonderful things. And so before you even try to sell anything to anybody, start there, because you are going to have to convince other people to buy your book. Not convince. You're going to have to inform people of your book, let them know that you have this book out, let them know whatever associated products or services that come with your book. And if you're not able to do that confidently, then they're not going to buy your book. And so getting imposter syndrome out of the way is so important. And I'll talk to you about ways that I do that, but I do mention that in the book as well. But remember that you are qualified. Remember that the book that God has blessed you with is for you, and it's for you to get it out to other people. And it's something where you have to kind of put yourself aside, because if you are so focused on making sure the stream is looking good, because it was a little tweaking on my side. If your book is for other people, which it is, that's the purpose of why you wrote the book. I know you think it's for you, but actually, in actuality, it's for your readers. Then it's your duty to get it out. This is something that it was a reminder from a group that I'm in. Kiara Bennett, she did a post in Traffic, Sales, and Profit, which I'm going to read the post to you. Earlier today, she said, if you believed your product or service, insert your book. If you believe your product or service book will improve the quality of life for your customer, then you have a moral obligation to get good at marketing. Now, y'all know, if you've been here a while, you know that I like marketing. I enjoy marketing more than publishing. If that's not you, that's fine. But remember that if people are not aware of what your book is about, if they're not aware of who your book is for, if they don't know your book exists, then they're not going to buy your book. And then they're not going to get that result, that transformation, that entertainment. Right now, I have a 5-year-old who is a voracious reader. And so we go to the library all the time. And there's certain books that he gravitates towards. And so if the authors of those books were not in the certain places, if they weren't available in the library, they weren't doing the advertising that they needed to do, then we wouldn't be able to have access to those books. And so the same goes for you. You want to make it so that people know that you have a book out there and that they are able to find it first, and they can't find it if they don't know you exist. And then, of course, reading it and recommending it. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I was getting a bit of an error message. Can you drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear me okay? I see you're adding your comments, so let me know because mine is being a little glitchy on my end. But I'm going to keep going. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So if you're on my email list, I shared earlier this week that I have been getting pitched by different folks from across the world. So earlier today, I actually got off of a podcast, or I recorded a podcast episode with this woman named Kate, who is an author coach over in the United Kingdom. And so she reached out to me because she saw a post that I did inside of a Facebook group for different business owners. And so I wasn't inherently pitching what I do, but I shared what I did. I share the type of work that I do with authors as a self-publishing consultant and book marketing strategist. And with that, she was like, oh, I need to talk to you because I work with authors on the writing side of things. And so with that, we kind of formed a little bit of a relationship and now have an opportunity to refer people to each other. Same thing with Coach LT. You'll see her in the chat. She's always great about adding comments and stuff like that. On my posts and things like that. We have a relationship where we refer people to each other and we support each other, and we're working on something that will be in the works in a bit. Won't say much more about that, but all of that comes from being visible. If people are not aware that you have this book that's a good guide for them, or if they're not aware that you have something that they can use as a resource for their women's group or use as a resource for their students, then you're not going to have these opportunities. And from both of those, from the 2 examples I gave with Coach LT and Latasha's her name on here, and then Kate, the podcast host, those were things that people pitched to me to be able to participate in because I was being visible. And so the first strategy to sell books that I've been using is to be visible. And so you have to be present and be visible in spaces where your ideal reader hangs out. Because if your ideal reader, once again, doesn't know that you exist, they're not aware of where you are, they don't know that you have this wonderful book that's coming out or that's already out, then they're not going to know to be able to have you come to their career day or whatever the case may be. I have a client, a former coaching client. She actually, and this is kind of a side note story, but her mom and I worked together both in person and online. We switched jobs and worked at the same place in 2 different places. And then she was able to go back to that same school and participate in career day just from connections and stuff like that. And so she mentioned to the people that were working there, who are my former colleagues, that I do this now. And she was like, yeah, you all need to hire Ashley if you want to get your book done. And so part of the reason why she was able to get that as an option is because her and her daughter have been doing different promos. So they did a birthday party for they did like an author visit birthday party. They've been speaking different places. And so they've been very good about being visible. And then also in terms of what I've mentioned, so with my book, I've been literally talking about pre-orders. I've been talking about pre-orders for a while, but for this launch, I've been talking about pre-orders since October. And so with that, I've done 2 challenges from October to now talking about pre-orders. I've done a group coaching program talking about pre-orders and teaching people the strategy. I've done VIP days about pre-orders. And so this consistent messaging, the consistent understanding of that this is what it is that you're talking about during your launch period is what will help people to then gravitate towards you, to help them to know, hey, oh, she talks about that, I need to go talk to her. Or you were somebody who popped up because of XYZ. And so for my clients and my former clients, because once you're in the house, your family, I make mental notes about the things that they have and the things that they do, so that way I can then recommend them to stuff that I see. And so, for example, that same author I was telling you about, hers is a children's book. And we supported the coaching side of it, not the publishing, because I don't publish children's books because that's a whole nother ball game, whole nother story. But with her, I know when people have things that fit that, then I can recommend her. Or for example, Paula, she is a client and she is working on a guide for parents to help them to be able to have their children tell their stories. So I know, okay, if I have some people who are children's book authors, and they have their kids and they want to also get their kids to write books, oh, I'm going to send them to Paula because she's planted the seed. And now I'm going to remember, okay, she does something with kids in their books. So I need to send them to her. Or, for example, I have a guy client who, Ronnie Jackson, his book is Push Past Impact. And his book helps husbands and fathers to be able to push past adversities. Um, Sorry, my mommy brain. Oh, push past adversities and then impact their sphere of influence in order to have um, a bigger impact. And so I know guy clients that are kind of in that in between phase, their 30s and 40s. They're trying to get to their next level when it comes to supporting their families and trying to elevate on their jobs. I know, okay, I'm going to send them to Ronnie because that's a better fit for them. And so all of this comes with being visible because Ronnie's great at doing speaking engagements. He's great at posting on social media about his books and things like that. Now, when I say visible, that doesn't mean that you have to be doing something every single day about your book. That's not what I'm talking about. It also doesn't mean that every post should be buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. That's definitely not what I'm talking about either. When it comes to visibility, you want to be very clear about the types of audiences that you are in front of. You want to also consider borrowing audiences from other people. So, for example, when you appear on a podcast, that's essentially borrowing someone else's audience. They already have a set audience that's there. And it's your job to find spaces that align with what it is that you are trying to discuss and talk about. And that looks like researching those places. So, only appearing in places that are a good fit and only appearing in places that are in alignment with what it is that you're trying to do. So, and I just realized my eyes look really red. Jeez, okay, get some eye drops. But for those of you that don't know, we are staying at my mom's house this week because we had some damage at our house, and so a little tired from that. But anyway, appearing in places where you are in tune with what it is that the people want and that you are a good fit. So many times authors say, oh, my book is for everyone or everyone should buy my book. And that's just really not the case. Everyone should not buy your book. Everyone is not your ideal reader. Everybody is not your ideal audience. And let me explain that. And I talk about this in the book as well, in chapter 3, I believe. And when I say I believe, let me take another side tangent. If you're an author and you're writing books that are like 100,000 words, like these romance authors, I don't know how y'all remember where all the stuff is in your book because this book is about 40,000 words. And let me tell you, I had to flag myself down so I can remember where stuff is. Anyway, finding places and placements where your book is going to be the spotlight and when your book is going to directly make people gravitate towards you. So, for example, some of the places that I am appearing are author podcast, speaking opportunities that are tied to authors. For example, if you have not already registered, you can sign up for the Write Your Book Summit, and that's going to be happening starting May 12th. And so at that summit, the other speakers besides myself are all people who are either talking about publishing, writing, or marketing. Those are the only topics that are going to be covered in that summit. And so I know that all of the other ladies and all the other participants who are there are focused on one thing. So I don't have to wonder if I'm attracting the wrong person by being one of the speakers there because I've already figured out and understand that okay, this is a good fit. So really being visible, but being visible in the right spaces is key because those are going to be the things that help people gravitate towards you because the audience is already there and the audience is already looking for what it is that you have. What I find with authors sometimes is that there's a tendency to just try to plaster your book wherever or throw your book up wherever and see what sticks. And that's just exhausting. You might have seen where people just send you a DM with their book link or send you a DM with their service or send you a message or whatever, a comment on your post with a product or service that they have. And no shade to the high school friends, but sometimes high school friends do this too. And it's like, we haven't talked in like 15 years. And is that right? Yeah, we haven't talked in like 15 years. And I don't even want this product. Like, you haven't done any research to see if I'm a good fit for this product. On the flip side, you with your book, you're going to do that kind of research and say, okay, is this person a good fit? Is this something they'd be interested in before you just go ahead and pitch them? Let me know if this is making sense in the chat. Okay, I just saw a heart come through. And then if you have questions, drop them in the chat and I'll answer them at the end for Q&A. So the first strategy that I'm using to get book sales is to be visible. And we talked about borrowing audiences and then content. So let me take a step back. So for content, choosing content that's consistent and that works for you. So I do a video about once a week. Typically try to do it on Wednesday. Sometimes it ends up being Thursday. That's fine. Whatever gets done. Sometimes I'm on camera. Sometimes I'm not on camera. And that's okay too. And then outside of that, I'm also creating content through stories. I'm sending emails to my list. I am appearing on podcasts. So pick the type of content that aligns with you and your values and your abilities, because the worst thing you can do is choose a content style that is not in alignment with that, and then you are exhausted doing it, or you're like, dang, I don't want to do this. And so you might see me do more than you are capable of doing right now, and that's okay, because I also have an assistant that works with me. But then I have the flexibility to be able to work in between nap time, and even right now, my mom is watching the baby, and so I do have some support there. So be mindful of looking at other people's content and looking at other people's products and services, and understanding that you don't see the full picture, because you never know what's going on the other side. They might have somebody doing all their content for them. They might be stealing content, God forbid. They might be they might be doing something else, and so they might be make it all AI generated. Which, if that's their choice, that's fine. So just be mindful of that. All right. So the second way that I'm selling books is, so we have be visible, and then the second one is be pitching. And these are not grammatically correct, but just roll with me. I wanted to keep the B. I got 4 B's. And so the second option is be pitching. And so that means to pitch people, pitch organizations, pitch podcasts that are a good fit for what it is you have to offer. Now, the first example, being visible, that helps people be to gravitate towards you, but you also always have the opportunity to pitch them. And so that can look like, okay, doing the research. It always goes back to research. That's the biggest thing in marketing, is research, researching your audience and understanding them. And so pitching people who are a good fit. So looking at podcasts that either you listen to and like, or looking at different events or organizations and offering and say, hey, can I include my book as a part of your swag bags? Or are you still looking for speakers, applying to be a speaker? The event that I mentioned earlier, the Write Your Book Summit, is one that I pitched to speak at. And the only reason that I knew about it is because someone else saw me being consistent, being visible, and I said, hey, I think you would be a good fit for this. And so that is why I was able to apply for the summit. And then one of the reasons why Dallas, the host, said yes is because she saw the visibility. So these all tied together. And then also, not being afraid to pitch is a big thing, because I mean, the worst they can do is say no. So I'm going to give another example of, I can't give all the details of this because it's not finalized just yet, but someone asked me to come support their authors in their community, and they wanted ongoing services. So me coming to be a guest expert and essentially a coach within their program. And so, and I don't want to say too much because we'll be able to figure out who it is. But on the back end of that, um, let's see. Okay, let's see what's going on. Okay, sorry, glitching with the streaming. Let me check my internet right quick, y'all. Okay, I'm gonna keep rolling. On the back end of that, they mentioned, or I had an idea to really elevate the experience. And so what ended up happening is that I was like, I don't know if I want to tell her this idea. I'm not sure. And I was talking to my husband about it. And I was like, I mean, this would be a really dope idea, but I don't know. And so he was like, I mean, obviously the worst she can do is say no. And then of course the Holy Spirit was like, girl, you better suggest this. And so I pitched it to her, and she loved the idea. And so it's an opportunity to really support her authors in a different way, in a really unique way. And it's something that's going to help her clients as well as help me, because I'll be able to be there to support them. And so we're finalizing that and working that out. So if you just be on the lookout for that. That's in the works. And so pitch yourself. Don't be afraid to pitch yourself. Don't be afraid to let people know that you have something out there. Don't be afraid to let people know, hey, I got a book. If you work with this, and this type of person, I would love to come and know her for a while. And so I'll give her a bulk discount. And then also I'll follow up with her as well. And so I sent her the link if she wanted to go ahead and order. And she's like, oh, this was fast. And that's another thing. Don't make it hard for people to pay you. Like, have your stuff together, have your things ready for people to be able to support you. And so those are ways to pitch. But also, even though she pitched me, I could say to her, okay, well, actually, I'd love to come speak at a workshop, or I'd love to be like zoomed into a workshop, and then that's something I could charge for, or I could do it for free and just use it as a way to get leads or to grow my audience. So there's so many different ways you can sell books that are not just go buy my book on Amazon. So if this is making sense to you, drop a 1 in the comments. And then, so we got be visible, be pitching. Then the next one is to be prepared. And so with this, when it comes to, and I touched on this a little earlier, when it comes to selling your book, you want to be prepared in a way that makes it easier for people to support you. So if you are doing things like setting up automations, meaning where if they buy the book, they get the ebook, having that ready to go is helpful. That's not always an option, of course. However, if it is, setting it up later is okay. For example, for my book, the um, I gave people the ebook version later once it was available. And so now they're able to use that while they wait on the physical copy. And so being prepared with different perks that you're going to include for them. So if you know that you want to add extra bonuses or extra benefits for them, having that whole funnel, having that whole system mapped out, having the whole fulfillment process mapped out, which is something that I talk about in my book, is key because, and I'm going to get the chapter reference for you, but that's key because then that way it makes your whole launch process run a lot smoother, and you're not having to stress about, okay, well, how do I make sure that this is completed, and then making sure that they have what they need, so you're not having to fulfill it at the time of like publishing your book or marketing your book, things like that. And then so that one is in chapter 11 of the book for order fulfillment. Um, Being prepared also looks like planning out and mapping out your entire launch as much as you can, because there are some things that you're just not going to be able to predict. You're not going to be able to know it's going to happen, which I'll do a whole debrief about that. But um, being prepared up into as much as you can be. So having it where, okay, you've already ordered your envelopes, you've already gotten your marketing swag material, or you've at least already like designed it. And when I say marketing swag material, I mean like things you might insert into the and I'm showing you briefly because I haven't shown the pre-order folks, so I don't want you to see what it is just yet. But things that you and this is a little sticker. Things that you want to have that you want to include as little bonuses or little cutesy things for those folks, and understanding that you need to have that planned out and designed so that way it's ready to print when it's time to get it done. And then okay, so the next, being flexible. Now, this is probably one of the most important things, and I thought about this the other day in terms of why I'm so kind of go with the flow. And I think being an educator for over a decade was just probably the biggest reason why this was the case. And it had to do with just in education, literally every day, every hour, every however much, things are always changing. Something is always different. And you have to really just roll with the punches and go with the flow. And that can be challenging if you are someone who's a type A person, or if you're someone who thinks that you need to have everything mapped out and down to a T, because you won't always get that as an option. And so you are going to have hiccups. You are going to have things that change. You are going to have things that you have to make adjustments for. So, for example, with this book, I had to, I don't want to say fire, but essentially I had to fire the cover designer because they weren't meeting expectations. And that sounds so cutthroat, but it was like there were simple things that I was asking them to do, or simple things that they should have noticed, or things I told them and they still hadn't corrected after asking them 2 times, 3 times. And I was trying to be patient and give them some wiggle room to make the adjustments. But after a certain point, it was like, okay, now this is an expense that you're costing me because I'm having to keep you on. And so being flexible with those kind of things with the publishing process, because even though you know the steps, I've published tons of books, there's still things that can get in the way and still things that can make it challenging that you might not have expected. And so being flexible can look like, okay, this is my plan A, but what's my plan B? Like you might be seeing some of the reels nowadays where people are like, oh, plan A was get married by da da da, have kids by da da da, and do XYZ by blah blah. And then plan B is like, okay, what really happened? So having a plan A is wonderful for your book, and having it mapped out to where you think, okay, this is what's going to happen with my launch, my release, things like that. But then honestly, you're going to have other stuff that happens too. And so being flexible is so important when it comes to selling your books, because you also want to be able to roll with the punches under pressure, because there's always going to be something that goes on. And I've mentioned before, maybe you'll have a shipping delay. I had a time where my last book was stuck in um, overseas, and it kept going back and forth from 2 locations, and so it delayed things for about a week. And then with this book, I had some delays as well. And so being flexible is so important. And then also with that, I want to kind of highlight something that I'm seeing online with authors, is that this assumption that you have to do everything the way that traditionally published authors do it. And I really want to just break this stronghold because I understand that we are kind of not the descendants, but I understand I understand the origins of independent publishing and self-publishing, and that a lot of it came from the desire to publish things outside traditionally published places. However, we are no longer needing to subscribe, or whatever the word is, to subscribe to those things. You don't have to wait to sell your third book in order to make a profit. You don't have to wait to sell your sixth book to make a profit. You don't have to wait to sell your 20th book to make a profit. I have seen people say that, like, oh, just write the next book to make money, or write the next book and then that's when sales will really, really pick up. Now, I do get that there's some merit if you have a series and people are going to automatically read the next book. However, telling somebody they have to wait till the third, sixth, or 20th book in order to make money is wild and also very presumptuous because some people don't have the ability to wait till that long. With my first book, money before my book was out, which hence why I wrote this book and why I've used pre-orders for every single book that I've released, because at that time I was a new mom. It was the start of the pandemic. There was just a lot of, and I talk about this in the introduction. There was a lot of uncertainty in terms of financials as a new mom in the United States, or as when you have a child in the United States, you typically get a pay cut, and so my pay was cut $5,000. There was uncertainty and possibly a recession at that time because of the pandemic, and so I didn't have the luxury of waiting until I wrote 19 more books in order to make money. And most authors don't either. And also, just from a moral, not a moral standpoint, I'm sorry, from a motivational standpoint, if you're having to write 20 full length books or even 6 full length books before you actually get your money back, a lot of people are just going to quit. And if that's not something that needs to happen, then why are we doing this? So I say all that to say we don't have to be a part of this notion that you have to follow the rules of traditional publishing. As a self-published author, of course, within reason, you're going to follow some of them, but you can do what you want to do. You do not have to do the same thing that other people do, even other self-published authors. You don't have to follow the same path that they're doing. Other independent authors, you can do what you would like to do. You can be as creative as you want to be. You have this freedom, and I understand that can be crippling for some folks. However, when you think about it in the sense of opening your mind to what's possible as opposed to closing your mind to just these are the only things I can do inside this box, then it makes the publishing process and the marketing process a lot more fun. Now, I'm going to give you another example from Threads. So there was a woman who was posting on there that was saying, well, if I'm self-publishing, I know I can just look up things on the internet. I can find everything on Google. Why would I pay somebody to help me with that process? And I hesitated to comment because I'm moving into a season where I am focused on magnetizing people who are already in alignment with what I want to do and they just need support, or finding people who are just like unaware of the different possibilities, because using pre-orders to cover your publishing costs is a pretty radical idea if you are not familiar with it. Most authors typically are not making enough money to do that with their pre-order. And so I'm hesitant to comment on posts where people might already be swayed a certain way and there's like no convincing them or no changing them. But I said, no, let me comment. So to the woman who said, well, I mean, why would I pay somebody to help me with my publishing when I could just use the internet and just everything's for free? And so I said, well, you could do that. You could use the internet and you could look in Google and you could use Chatty. That's what I call ChatGPT. You can use all these things. However, you're not paying somebody for information. You're paying them for advice and things that are specific to what it is that you are doing. You're not paying for what are the steps to publishing. You're paying for insight. You're paying for understanding how to not waste $200 extra on your shipping because you chose the wrong shipping, like I did with my first pre-order, with my first book launch. You're paying for insight into your particular situation because, yes, there's information on the internet, but that information is not tailored to you. It's not tailored to you as an individual. It's not tailored to you as a general person. It's just, this is what it is. You figure out how to do the rest. And in publishing, there are in marketing too. There's so many scammers and there's so much terrible advice out there. And so if your thought process is to, I'm just going to take the information that's out there and then figure it out myself, or I'm just going to YouTube University everything and not get any kind of support, then you are making a trade-off and you're spending more time and energy than you are money. And if that's your trade-off, that's fine. If you're like, I would rather spend the time and energy to figure this out over the course of years as opposed to get a result that could happen in hours when I'm talking about my VIP day clients, then that's fine. Just understand that's the trade-off that you're doing. And also understand that the information you're getting is information, it's not advice. And that there are certain things that can be mistakes that are either not irreplaceable, what is the word I'm looking for? Irrevocable. You can't come back from. There are things that can happen in the publishing industry that maybe you set something up properly and you have to redo your entire book because you did this one thing. Previously, I've had a client who she ended up having to spend 4 times the amount to get her stuff fixed because she didn't work with somebody when her book first was created, and then by the time she got with me, it took literally. Hey, I want you to think about when you hear new information that's different from what you're used to as an author and as a business owner. When you hear things that are outside of what you think is your comfort zone, I want you to take a minute and take a beat and reframe your mind and think, okay, just because it's true right now doesn't mean it needs to be true forever. So same thing with like Kindle Unlimited. I know that's a big thing in the author space, in authorship. Oh, should I be in Kindle Unlimited? Should I not be in Kindle Unlimited? You can come in and out of Kindle Unlimited every 90 days. So if it's not something you want to do, then try it and then don't do it anymore. Or try it for seasons. Like with my Daniel Fast book, I'll put it in there and then I take it out. Like it doesn't have to be set in stone. It doesn't have to be something that's so final. And you don't want to make decisions based upon that as if that's the end all be all. So I know I got on a little bit of a soapbox, but I did want to mention that under the flexible option because it's so important to be flexible when you are writing your books, when you are marketing them, when you're publishing them, because you don't want to diminish opportunities that you can have as a result of those things. All right, then my last B, I know I said I had 4, but I like to give y'all a bonus, and so my last B is to be flexible. And if you are just now joining us, we are talking about ways that I sell books, and we have 5 B's now. So be visible, be pitch yourself, be prepared, be flexible, and then be strategic. And so if you didn't catch the beginning, be sure to go back and watch the replay, and you can see that on the platform you're viewing now or over on YouTube. And so being strategic. Now, we are not in a time or a season where we have the ability to just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. That is not what we're doing. We don't have the time, we don't have the energy, and I don't like wasting money. I'm okay investing, but I don't like wasting money in the sense of like I need to have an idea of what this return of investment is going to be. And so as I move in this shift towards profitable publishing, that is the focus. And so when it comes to being strategic, you want to make sure the decisions that you're making in your book business are based on some type of data or based on something that you have had some type of inclination, whether it's like a download from the Holy Spirit or whatever source that you follow. You want to be strategic in what it is that you're doing. You do not want to spend your time, I want to say spend, you don't want to waste your time and energy on strategies that are either outdated or strategies that are not a good fit for you. So earlier we talked about with your content, you want to pick strategies that are a good fit for you. If you know that you have screaming kids in the background, then doing live videos all the time probably is not a good fit for you unless your audience is just okay with your screaming kids. So for me, I choose to film content at times during nap time. And there's been times on videos where I've had to get off and be like, all right, y'all, I gotta go, baby's up, bye. Like, and I'm okay with that. Or there's been times like my son has come on during a live challenge because he heard me doing something and he came in the room. And my older son, actually both of them have come in, but that's like a rarity for me just because I choose to do it at times where they're not going to need my attention. And if that's not for you, that's fine. So maybe you have to film things later at night. Maybe you have to wake up early and film them. Maybe you're doing things that are not film. Maybe you are deciding to do strictly podcast episodes. I know I have a couple author friends who they focus only on podcast episodes and they're still selling books because podcasts are evergreen. When people find them, they binge them. And they are already tied to who it is that you have as an ideal reader. So they're only appearing on podcasts that are a good fit for them and for their authorship. So earlier I mentioned I was on a podcast for authors. And so, excuse me, one moment. So earlier I mentioned I was on a podcast for authors. And so as I continue, I'm going to continue to find those types of podcasts. And so being strategic about the strategy you're doing, being strategic about strategies that have a high rate of return for your level of time and investment. And so the ones I choose are live streaming because it has a high rate of return. I can take this video, I can use AI tools to chop this video up into smaller segments of video. I can use this video and get it transcribed. There's software that already does it automatically, so I'm not having to go back and remember, what did I say in that video? I can turn this into a blog post. So use things that are going to be efficient and effective. And I talk about some of those strategies in chapter 15 of the book, of different ways to be efficient and different ways to kind of milk your content. And that's a strategy that works even if you're not doing a pre-order. So that chapter is called Accelerate Your Pre-Order Success. However, the strategies that are there you can use indefinitely, as you see here. So, all right, now last thing, you also want to be strategic in the ways in which you are coming up with your book cover, your title, with choosing your keywords and categories and description. Being strategic about the way you're rolling out your marketing is so important because it makes it so that it's easier for people to gravitate towards you. So when choosing my title, I spent forever and a day trying to figure out what title I wanted to use for the book, and also how I wanted to tie it into my other products and services. And so that also looks like looking up trademarks, looking up copyrights, things like that, to make sure you're not infringing upon somebody else's copyright. And then going through the trademark process. And so you'll see my little TM here, and eventually, let me get my makeup off of here. Eventually that'll turn into a registered trademark once the process is complete. But also being very strategic about the subtitle of your book or any type of thing that might appear on the cover. And so in this case, mine is How to Grow Your Audience, Pre-Sell Your Book, Cover Costs Before Self-Publishing. And so with that, I knew that I wanted to have a title that was dually purposeful, so one that is something the general public would understand if they heard it said, but also something that the Amazon algorithm would easily pick up on when people get to the page. And so going through that process was important as well. Spending time, and sorry, let me check my note real quick. I think I have one other thing I want to say. Spending time thinking about those things before your book is finished is key, because if you are waiting, this is part of the be strategic, the bonus B, from the 4 B's I shared earlier. If you're waiting until your book is out or waiting until your book is fully finished, then there's certain things you're not going to be able to change, and there's certain things you're not going to be able to do as a result of that because you've completed the process. And so that's where things like beta readers come in to be able to support you, to be able to help you on that journey, to give you not strategies, but to give you ideas and suggestions that would be helpful for them. And so being strategic about how you are releasing your book is key. And I know we were talking about how to sell books, but because most people don't read the books that they buy or the books they get, you want to make sure your book is an easy read. You want to make sure it's one that is easy to comprehend, one that makes it so that it's easy for people to read, recommend, and review your book, because at the end of the day, we want those reviews. And so just to kind of give you a little preview, flip through, I tried to make sure that, let me put on my teacher over the shoulder. Okay, sorry. I used to be an elementary school teacher, so my over the shoulder flip through so I can like hold the book and see it. So like putting examples of emails in here that people might send, putting visuals, examples of how my beta readers got me together, the feedback they gave me, and then also for my first book, how they structured it or how they gave me suggestions about the cover. Because originally, just side story, originally I wanted my cover for my first book to look like this, with the mom that has the baby in her belly, but my beta readers reminded me that every mom doesn't have the baby out of her belly. Some people are adopted, some people do IVF with a surrogate, or whatever the case may be. And so that transitioned that into this. And so going back to the main point, but making it so it's an easy read, so it's easy to flip through, so that it's something where there are less large blocks of text, and that it's something where it's very manageable. As well, putting in resources throughout. So, for example, asking them, hey, you read the book? Okay, go ahead and leave me a review. So scanning those QR codes to leave a review. Or giving them steps at the beginning. Well, let me take a step back. So giving them check-ins that they need to do. So there are a couple success check-ins that I've included to make sure they're on track with the framework I provide. And then adding in success stories. So here's one from Tashawn Creswell. She was able to do $2,800 with her pre-order. And so like telling her story. Also, given the charts and the data and the graphs, all of that stuff. And so, of course, this is specific to a business book, and it will come in black and white. I just ordered color copies for the pre-order folks. I might leave it available for those who order from my site. But it's just so cute, so pretty. So, but this is the black and white version. And so even with that, making it easy for people to read it, making it so that it's easy for them to see what you're talking about, follow along, and throughout. And so being strategic about the structure of your book and how it's designed. And if you have questions about that, I did do a video comparing the Lulu version with the KDP version. So you can check that out over my YouTube or here on Facebook. But just be mindful, Facebook does delete videos after, I want to say 30 days. They've started changing that. And so you probably want to catch it on YouTube. But I'll put that in the show notes for that. But so being strategic about your actual creation of your book, so that way it's something that's enjoyable for your readers and it actually meets the needs of what it is that they are desiring instead of just focusing on what it is that you want. And I did say this earlier, but if you have questions, drop those in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. But we are about to wrap up. So if you haven't gotten a copy of this book, I encourage you to visit profitableselfpublishing.com and I'll put that in the chat for you. And the official release date will be May 12th. Pre-order folks will have theirs sent out before then. If you want the color copy, go ahead and order it there. If you're watching this after May 12th, then I'll have a link on that site for you to be able to order from Amazon and the other retailers that it will be available. But it will be in black and white. So just heads up about that. And it's still good content, so still either way works. All right, so I'm going to give you a few moments to add your questions. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and then if nothing else, I will head out. But let me know if this has been helpful for you, and share it out with those who you are in the author's spaces with, because it's all about helping folks be able to sell more books, reach more readers, make more money, and change more lives as authors. So, all right, let me check the chat. I'm going to wait just a little bit because there is a bit of a delay. And then if you are watching on replay, do hashtag replay so that way I can know and can come back and answer your questions. All right, don't see any questions now. So I hope this has been helpful for you to think about ways how you can get more book sales. And if you are working on pre-orders or want to get better at pre-orders and launches, I do encourage you to grab Profitable Publishing pre-orders. And then if you know that you want to work with me this month, then I encourage you to add the word coach into the comments over on YouTube, or shoot me a DM on whatever other platform you're viewing this from with the word coach. And then we can see which program is a good fit for you. So have a good rest of the day. Thank you.